All right. Uh, Welcome to Bryan Stevenson's Capstone speech. I am really excited, and I hope you are as well. Bryan is a really good friend and a loving man of God, and he's very passionate about what he does. I think this is going to be a great speech. So if you all will join me in giving Bryan a round of applause.
So I spent quite some time in the hospital as a kid between developing RSV as an infant and having 6 broken arms. And that's kind of where I got a feel for the medical field and where I started to fall in love with it. Whenever I considered a future career, that's always something that I came back to. I always had an interest in medicine, and that's always something that fascinated me. But whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to help people. And my life verse and my verse in my capstone has been Isaiah 117. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. I remember the first career I ever wanted to be very distinctly. I was in 7th grade, Mr. Sutherland's class downstairs, and he was telling us about all the atrocities that happened in the Middle East, all the genocide and the war and the terrorism that rocked the lives of the people there. And I knew something had to be done. I could not and would not stand idly by and let evil prevail like that. So I decided pretty early on that I wanted to be in the military, but I didn't decide what branch until much later. But I'll get into that in a minute. So I kind of had 3 or 4 things that I was considering doing: military, medicine, whatever that was, and then public service. But I had 4 distinct career paths laid out as I came into senior year in Capstone. The first was being solely a military officer and making a career out of that. The second was becoming a police officer, maybe becoming a detective. The third was becoming a politician and making a difference in people's lives that way. And the fourth, which is what I based my capstone off of, was becoming a paramedic. I always saw paramedics as like the front lines medical responders who were in the trenches, at car accidents, at house fires, um, in there caring for patients. And that's exactly what they are. They have the public service of a police officer, the structure of the military, and that medical side that always interests me. Um, so even though I had those 4 paths, whatever I decided to do, I always came back to medicine. So that's why I chose it. And I set out this year to find if being a paramedic was really what I wanted to do, because we know that wanting to do something and actually doing something are 2 separate things. So that's what I set out to find this year, if that's what I really want. I quickly found out that medicine was a great choice. I got the chance to visit my future college last fall, the University of Arizona. Go Wildcats! Um, I got to shadow an ambassador to a physiology class and a uh, political science class, or it was a civics class. And at that time, I was still considering maybe doing um, politics or something. So I wanted to see both at a college level. So I went in to the physiology class, and it was an hour-and-a-half physiology class for students who are not physiology majors but still wanted to take a physiology class. So it's kind of the view from 10,000 feet overview of physiology. And the time I was in there, the professor went over the entire cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system. So if you don't know what the lymphatic system is, it's the system that brings all the excess water from your cells and puts it back into your bloodstream. And your lymph nodes, you've probably heard of those, filter that fluid for bacteria, viruses, and cancer cells, and activates your immune system to deal with it accordingly. But I was just geeking out. I was sitting in there and I was just having a great time. And then I went to the next class, the political science class, and immediately I just thought, I cannot do this for 4 years. Like, this is not what I love. I just didn't have the passion for it that I had for physiology, and um, that confirmed my choice of physiology as a major. I got the chance to interview a 9-year paramedic, Kyle Bartlett, and I sat down with him. I got to ask my questions like, "What's it like? What do you do? What responsibilities do you have?" And I got a pretty good idea of what being a paramedic was like, and I liked it. And he said the team dynamic was like a family. They're all brutally honest with each other, and they'll call each other out, but it sharpens them and it makes them better as a team. I said whatever you do, you're always helping people, and that's what he loves about it. I said the hardest part is the patients you can't save, is the ones that are too far gone, or when it's a kid and they lose a kid on scene. And he just said that's brutal. And I came away encouraged that medicine was the right choice, but I felt that there was something missing. Um, I got to read a book called Paramedic: The Front Lines of Medicine, and it's by Peter Canning. And he was a English major in college, and he spent almost 2 decades writing speeches for Senator Weaker in the 90s. And one day he just decided to drop everything, stop speech writing, and then become a paramedic and then to save people, on the streets. And you get to live firsthand what he experiences, like the heart pounding seconds between life and death. And um, he's just right there with you. And it inspired me. It was the most impactful book that I've ever read in my life because you got to live through his eyes and see the interactions he has between his patients and his coworkers and everyone that he meets. And my favorite quote from the book, and probably my favorite quote of all time, was "I like being nice to people. Lifting them up lifts me up." And that's everything that I want to do is to lift others up. And through that book, I learned that I really want to be in trauma. Whatever I do, is that I have a passion for um, helping those in like car accidents and house fires and things. And the first place I got to volunteer was the Wellspring Church. And what's cool about the Wellspring Church is they have a free clinic that is staffed by doctors, nurses, and med students that homeless people can come to and get the health care that they desperately need. Um, and for people who can't afford healthcare normally. And what I got to do was take vitals, blood pressure, heart rate, breathing rate, and oxygen levels, and help them get signed in and to help them help them get into the doctor to get the help that they need. And I got to watch doctors in action, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever done. And if I thought that was the coolest thing I would do, boy, was I in for a surprise because it only gets better. And yeah, I got to see doctors in action, and just watching them. And after a semester of studying paramedics, I I realized I found my missing piece. The missing piece for me was I would be so frustrated as a paramedic not being able to help the patient and do everything possible. Because paramedics simply are not trained to do everything that a doctor is, and that's not their fault. They're not supposed to be doctors. But I would just get so frustrated by not being able to do everything possible. And deep down, I always wanted to be a doctor too, but I told myself, no, you're not smart enough. You can't do it. Something better might come along. And after watching these doctors in action, and after studying medicine for a semester, I found that I really do have a passion for medicine, and I'm willing to put in the work that it takes to get there, and that nothing better will come along because this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. So yeah, I have that passion, and I'm excited about it. So at the semester, right before um, January, I decided to switch gears in my capstone and start focusing more on becoming a doctor. I didn't want to be a paramedic. That's what I learned from my first semester, but that's okay. That's great, actually. That's what I set out to do at the very beginning. And I never would have known that I wanted to be a doctor if I never pursued becoming a paramedic. So nothing lost to that. Um, Now I'm focused on becoming a doctor, and I'm even looking at med schools for the future. Kind of getting excited for that. But the biggest thing that I found through this was confidence, and I found a confidence that I didn't know I had and that I didn't know I could have, and it changed the view of myself and the view of my future. Because I always did well in school. I graduated last semester with a 3.7 GPA, which isn't bad, but I never really applied myself. And when I decided I wanted to pursue being a doctor, I decided to really put my mind to it and really try hard, and just an attitude adjustment, just with an attitude of confidence and of um, academic excellence. I came back the next semester, and I currently hold a 4.2 GPA just from a confidence adjustment from wanting to become a doctor. And I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, and that's what I was meant to do. So I decided I wanted to be a trauma surgeon or an ER doctor because those are the doctors that deal in the trauma area. So I got to interview an ER doctor, a family friend, Dr. Sandy Baker, and she works down at the VA hospital downtown. And the VA hospital is the Veterans Affairs Hospital. They help get the veterans the health care they need after they come back from wars and conflicts and stuff, and they need a lot of help down there. So um, she said she loves working at the VA, and she encouraged me on my choice to becoming a doctor, and that she comes away every day knowing that she helped make a difference in the lives of those who served her country and in helping get the care that they need. And she said I was doing everything right, and that as long as I kept this passion through college, that I would have no problem getting into med school and then graduating and becoming a doctor. Um, and we talked for hours about crazy stories that she's experienced in the ER. And if you want to hear some of them sometime, you can ask me about it because she has some pretty crazy ones. But even after everything that happened, even after finding confidence and proving to myself I can excel academically, and volunteering at the clinic and seeing doctors in action and talking to Dr. Baker and my family and getting encouragement from them, I still had doubts that I could do it, and they didn't last long though. Earlier I mentioned I wanted to be in the military, and over the summer and in the beginning of the school year, I applied for an Army ROTC Scholarship. And the ROTC Scholarship is the Reserve Officers Training Corps. And basically throughout college, you do training in classes that you would do in the military, and you graduate as an officer, whatever branch you chose. In my case, I would graduate as a second lieutenant in the Army. The ROTC Scholarship is the most competitive scholarship in the nation. It's a full college application, so 4 essays, all your academic courses, grades, all your extracurriculars, and then all your leadership positions that you've held. And then there's a physical. You have to do a mile run, push-ups, and sit-ups, and they grade you based on that. And then you have to go in for an interview with a professor of military science, which is usually like a lieutenant colonel, which is a pretty high rank in the military. And they have a barrage of questions for you, like what would you do in this situation, and how would you handle this, and kind of gauge your attitude and your personality and grade how good of an officer you would be. And it was the most intimidating thing I've ever done, because they're supposed to stay like completely emotionless, and it was intimidating. But the acceptance rate is about 20% for these scholarships. 10,000 apply and 2,000 are accepted. And to put that into perspective, it's about the same percentage as students that are admitted into Oxford University in England. So it's a pretty insane competition there. So the scholarship pays for full academics to any school you want, any school that has ROTC. And I found out about a month ago that I earned the Army ROTC Scholarship for the University of Arizona. So I'm getting all my tuition paid for, and I also have the opportunity to get med school paid for through the Army as well. I don't know if I got that, but for a few years at least, but it's just amazing to have that opportunity. And all my doubts went away when I got this certificate in the mail. This is what they send you when you earn, oh my gosh, an ROTC scholarship. So that's that page. And I got this in the mail, and it hit me how big of an award this was, and that if I could get this, then there's nothing stopping me from becoming a doctor. So this was just another huge confidence boost. But what's cool about that, though, is I always thought called to the military. That's always where I thought God was, wanting me to go. And I got a pretty clear sign from God that, because I could have done ROTC without a scholarship. That was my plan if I didn't get it. But I got the scholarship, and that was pretty clear that that's where God wants me. And that's cool, because that doesn't happen often. You get a clear direction kind of thing. So. That was really cool. And I got a chance to go back to the University of Arizona a few weeks ago to Admitted Student Day. I met the guidance counselor for the ROTC Army. I walked in, and he gave me this hat, and it's a really cool hat. It's a really nice hat with a custom Arizona ROTC badge. It's just really cool. And he gave it to me, and he said, I quote, "We are so stoked to have you here." And this guy's like 40, but it was really funny. And then I got to go to a breakout to an anatomy lab put on by the physiology department. And in the lab, they had a pig heart, pig lungs, sheep eye, sheep brain, and a little ECG that hooked up to your wrist, and you could see your heart rate. And it was really cool. And the coolest thing I thought was the pig lungs, because you saw them expand and contract, and it was really cool. And then I already knew that I wanted to major in physiology, but now I definitely can't imagine doing anything else. So that was just really cool. One of the other experiences I got was getting wilderness first aid certified, and it's wilderness first aid when You're out in the middle of nowhere with limited resources, and help is more than 3 hours away, so it's pretty intense. And the course was 18 hours. There was my lab pocket back there. It's pretty cool. Well, normal first aid is just um, like small cuts or broken bones when help is just a few minutes away. But in the wilderness, you need to know how to stabilize a patient, how to treat them, and how to assess their injuries to determine how bad a shape they're in. And you have to know how to do everything from treating snake bites to making traction devices for broken femurs and to managing massive bleeding and using tourniquets. I'm also fully CPR certified and AED certified, so that's pretty cool on top of that. But the best thing I learned from that was how to do a full body exam on a patient, how to do a full workup to fully assess the condition of the patient. And that's exactly what a trauma surgeon would do upon receiving a patient in the hospital or in the field or wherever. So it was just a cool way to begin and kind of get a taste of what trauma medicine is like. And this is the med kit that I made after the course, and has almost everything that I need, everything that I'm trained to use. The only thing I don't have is like a tourniquet and like a traction device, but those aren't really fit the med kit. But yeah, it's just what I built and what I learned. And, that really confirmed my love for emergency medicine, for trauma, and that's great because that's basically all you can do in the Army. So, and then I recently got a chance to volunteer at the VA hospital where Dr. Baker works, and now I'm a fully registered volunteer. I even got this fancy little vest here that says volunteer services, and then this is my all-access ID card. So now I've broken-hearted and binds up their wounds. I get the opportunity to volunteer at the ER, the VA ER this summer, right there in the thick of it, and I can't wait.